motion to enter public session. Good evening.
Jean, we're having kind of a hard time hearing you. I can't hear Jean. Oh, okay, we're going to see if we can relocate her to Kathy's office. Hold on one second.
Yeah, I know. I hear that. I don't know what's going on.
Kathy, your computer is muted.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can see you and I can hear you right now.
Okay.
Great. Okay.
All right, sorry about that. Good evening, everyone. Can I get a motion to enter into public session?
Make a motion. Courtney.
I'll second.
That was John. Okay. Move to the roll call. Mr. Maslin,
Here.
Mr. Nevins,
Here.
Mrs. Wilson,
Present.
Mrs. Jaskula,
Here.
and Mr. Diefendorfer.
Here.
Okay. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
One nation.
nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Let's see, we'll have comments from the public on agenda items at this time. Just a reminder for those members of the public in attendance, this is one of two opportunities afforded members of the public to comment on or inquire about agenda items. Members of the public also have an opportunity at the end of the evening's agenda to ask questions or voice concerns or comments on matters not formally noted on the agenda. We do appreciate everybody's cooperation, and you can use the email boecomments@manans.org. I'm sorry, but manans.com, right? .org or .com?
Org. Manans.org.
BOE comments, plural, @manans.org. And let's see if there's anything in there. Anything earlier?
I don't see anything, Jeff. The last thing I see is from January 11th.
Yep. Okay, so we'll give someone a minute, or some people a minute if they have any questions. If not, we'll move on.
And we will have a second public comment at the end of the meeting as well.
Okay, we will move along to the approval of the minutes. Are there any questions about last month's meeting? Anything that we saw? I'm not seeing anything from anybody. So can I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District accept the minutes of the January 11th, 2021 meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Resolution carries. We move along to policy.
And I actually have a comment here, and I did share some information with the board in the update this week. This is listed as a first policy reading. This is a relatively new policy requirement under Ed Law 2D. So though it's listed as a first reading, we did work with our technology director support from South Colony in using the template recommended by the New York State Education Department. I am going to ask the board to consider moving directly to a final reading and approving this policy because of the timeliness to have it in place and be compliant. We've done this in the past when new policies have become necessary and the timing is of the essence. Remember back to the food shaming policy and the sexual harassment policy. So certainly I'm open to answering any questions on it. It's a pretty straightforward boilerplate policy that's used across districts, but a relatively new requirement, again, under Ed Law 2D. So I would request that the board consider waiving the first and second reading and moving right to the to the final reading and adopting.
I just had one quick question. That I noticed the policy mentioned required training. Is that something SED is going to supply or something C's is going to do? Or
No, actually, that's something we will work directly with South Colony on.
Okay.
With that intermunicipal agreement we have with them.
Okay.
I just had a question regarding line 2. If you read it the way it is written right there without context of anything, it doesn't read correct. But is that the way it should be?
It is. So it goes back to the top and then down to the bottom. It's basically just saying that people can't do anything with our kids' data or information.
No, that's number one. I had the same question, not the same question about number 2, but it says that basically that parents have the right to review and inspect the contents of their students' educational record.
Their own students.
Their own students, right? Yep, I understand.
Correct. Yep.
Stored or maintained by an educational agency, and that's us.
Or a third-party vendor. But we won't, basically what this does is say we're protecting all of that data from a third-party vendor.
So should it read the contents of their student? Or is it just assumed this policy is being, it's addressed for individual parent versus and their student or the bloodline or whatever?
Yeah, it's meant for their individual student. If the board would prefer, we changed the to their, I'm happy to do that. We can read it as amended and go from there.
Well, it's also the Parents' Bill of Rights.
Correct.
So I think that's why it's not specifying, because it's the Parents' Bill of Rights.
Right. I'm happy to change the to there if it's going to get us there.
Yeah, and it's the EIR, right? Not the RE. And it doesn't have to be, right? And listen, Ms. Ball knows English isn't my best thing, right? But if I was just to read this and I read line 2, it doesn't really have it specified as it reads as any parent's right to any things, not me and my kid or a parent and their kid. But let the rest of the board read it. Maybe I'm just
and I think, when we do policy in general and we have these discussions, and we're going to talk more about the policy committee in a minute, this is like the these and the thous and the shalls and the mays, and we always go around on, the wordsmithing. I'm open to whatever we need to make it work. Really, my concern is we are not in compliance right now without having the policy there. I'd like to get the policy on the books officially.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to moving right to third reading and making a policy tonight. I just had a question about the way that read,
So I defer to the majority of the board if we want to leave it as is and move to it, or if we want to change the to there in line number 2 and move forward.
Why don't we just move forward with it as is and then revisit it in policy committee?
Thoughts from other members of the board?
I'm good with that.
I'm fine to move forward.
I'm okay with that too. Bill was muted, but reading his lips said he's okay with that.
Stupid technology. Yes, I'm fine with that too. Thank you, John. Thank you, Benny.
So I would ask then whoever reads the resolution to adjust the resolution accordingly, where it says approve the first reading of the following policy, to just adjust that to approve the following policy.
Do we need a motion to waive those readings?
I don't think we need to, because we can adopt it as amended, but if you're more comfortable doing that, I would certainly entertain that.
I would just have someone, if they're comfortable, making a motion to waive the additional readings so we can move to this final version.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'm in favor of that as well. The motion passes.
And now I need the motion to approve the policy.
Okay, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District, on recommendation of the Policy Committee, approve the following policy.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution passes.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, we'll move along to business matters. We have several discussion items. We do have the Board of Education term length, board member participation on several committees. That's the bulk of the discussion items for this business matters topic. We can start with the Board of Education term length, not meaning that we don't have term limits. It's just more, as we discussed in our first meeting last month. I think it was in December, or actually it was in December, I believe, first looked at it. We got the data. This is more of looking at things from the lens of, we have 5 years. We looked at the data that we were given. We went to NYSBA. NYSBA gave us some recommendations on, if we do agree to this, we do need to contact both our attorney and the Board of Elections to get the proper wording, so it can be on the.
Jeff, let me just chime in here. We may have lost Bill. I'm going to suggest to him he try getting back in and leave his video off.
Oh. Okay.
Bill, can you hear us?
I can now, sorry.
All right, if you freeze again, I might recommend turn your video off. That usually helps and you'll at least be able to hear us.
Okay, sorry about that.
No worries.
So what was the last thing you heard, Bill?
Committee assignments or no, you're talking about the term limits.
Okay. So this is more a continuing discussion around the board length and not term limit per se.
Yeah.
A board member can run as often as they like for eternity, but this is more of a discussion around possibly reconfiguring the actual years that a board member would serve. It currently is 5, and we're under discussion to be possibly reducing that just for the future of recruitment of board members, since we have not had many contested elections over the last, let's see, at least my time, I think only 2 or 3 elections in the last 12 or 15 years. So this is really more so folks would not be as uncomfortable dipping their feet in the water, possibly seeking board membership in the future. You got the data from me in the beginning around the actual districts, 75 of them either in our vicinity or our surrounding areas through several BOCES. And then I forwarded you on the data from NYSBA, specifically the question you asked around kind of retention, right? People re-upping or being re-elected as far as their terms go. So this is a continuing discussion on that. And I mentioned, Bill, I don't know if you caught it, if we do move forward with this type of configuration, we do have to contact, obviously, our lawyers for the proper wording, should we decide to do this, and then also the Board of Elections to put the appropriate parameters around it. So I'll open it up if people have questions or comments, and we can further discuss this. And don't everybody jump in.
Am I still here?
You are.
Yes.
Oh, man, I don't know what's going on. Gotta love Spectrum and their broadband connection. Listen, I still don't have a problem with the whole thing. What I maybe would have a question about, and again, data from all over the board, we're talking city districts, we're talking big, small, we're talking rural, union free. I still think we should send this out to our community and see what the input or feedback is from, the Manans district. If we're going to talk about lowering, I'm not opposed to it. I haven't been able to find a reason to do it or not to do it. What does our community think? That I still think we should have some kind of community open something, WebEx webinar, something.
Wouldn't they also have a choice to vote weigh in on it at the polls if we did put it up there? I mean, they ultimately, if they don't like it, they can reject it. It's up to them, not us.
I mean, I've been thinking about it, and I would, it is true that we need more people involved, and maybe going to 3 years people would be more comfortable with that time frame. So again, like Bill, I'm not opposed to putting it out there, asking people if they would prefer that, but I couldn't find anything negative about at least trying.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it also. The only negative thing I could think of is we mentioned last time possibly a less stable board because you have maybe more turnover. But I think if people are, feeling like they're enjoying it and able to make a difference, people will probably run for more than one term. In addition to having possibly more people run at once, maybe contested elections, maybe more involvement. Something we've seen a lot of in our district is people don't leave at the end of their term, right? They a lot of times end up resigning. That's how people leave our board usually. And I think shortening the term would probably help that, which would mean that people are exiting at the end of their term, which just seems like it'd be a more fair and open process because then the voters get to pick the next board member instead of it being an internal pick kind of thing. So, I can see pros and cons. I think in the end, I'm okay with doing a shorter term. I think the benefits probably outweigh the negatives. If people want to serve longer, they can always run it for another term.
And if you're worth your weight in gold, then, and you're a good board member, then you will be reelected. I'll play devil's advocate, right? You talk about, continuity of the board. You also have to look at the other side of it. What if there is someone that's not so not so good on the board, as I've witnessed early in my board days, 13 years ago or so. That then could be construed differently as far as being a good thing for the school community, et cetera. So, if you're worth your weight in gold every 3 years, you buck up and you run again. So, I mean, I don't really have an opinion on it. The reason that I thought about this is I thought about, the years that I've had on the board. This is my third term. 3 of the 5 members, were appointed to start before they ran. Because of people exiting for various reasons, one moving out of town for a job, one moving out of the area, and one child aging out. So I look at it from the lens of the overall view of community involvement and people getting involved in their community. We look at the PTA and we're always looking for chairs and all that stuff. So, I mean, it's hard to find. This is a very serious commitment. When people look at 5 years, I think they're less likely to throw their hat in the ring as opposed to 3. And I do understand, I think, Bill, you made this comment back in December, the ramp that you're on when you first get on the school board, as far as the educational component and learning those things, they do take time. So that there is that as well, as we consider this. John or Jen?
Yeah, I can see benefits on both sides, and I think Bill's point is a good one to get some input from our community on this and see what they think. If we're solving a problem that doesn't exist, it doesn't seem worth the trials and tribulations. But if people step up and say, "Hey, yeah, if it was 3 years, I'd be much more likely to run," then that seems like worth addressing.
Yeah, I don't view it from it as an issue. I'm just looking at for like succession planning, consistency in people serve their terms instead of leaving early in a 5-year term where then we're having to, hold special elections or appointments, et cetera. So I'm looking at more from the recruitment and the succession planning side of things, and not it being an issue that we're solving, but more, building the consistency long-term for our community to serve on boards, which takes a great deal of time. How would you view, Bill or John, how would you view getting input from the community on something that's like a 1 question or 2 question survey on our website? I mean, how would you view that? I mean, we can typically we could put out something on Facebook, we could put something out. I mean, what is your view on that?
Could we do like a Survey Monkey?
Okay.
1 or 2 questions.
I'd probably even suggest going a little bit simpler now with the use of Google Forms. We have the ability to do that. We now, and I'm going to talk more about our communications a little bit later in my comments section, but we have a direct line to all of our parents and families now via phone, email, and text message. And to our broader community, we could certainly make it available and broadcast it out through the activities, and ask the village to assist with that too. And I would certainly work with our communications specialist around how to shape that.
Mm-hmm.
But again, to your point, I don't think it would be lengthy at all. It would be less than a handful of questions likely.
I would keep it to 2 or 3. Yeah. Okay. Well, Dr. Long, I can work with you on that if you want.
That'd be great. And I would think if we can get with Aaron next week and Jeff and I can talk that, I guess what I would ask, if we are able to move ahead and get that information out there, do you want to wait until the next board meeting to do that? Or do you just want us to go ahead and do it if we have that vehicle and can go ahead and do that?
I'm fine with moving ahead with it before the next board meeting. I don't know how others feel.
That's what I was saying, right? I mean, if we're talking about, we want to possibly before the election or possibly get something on the slate, we're going to want to get information from our community quickly.
Yeah, I think that moving ahead seems fine. As long as we get a peek at the survey before it goes out or whatever, seems reasonable.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. We will get to work on that then.
Okay. All right, we've got board member participation. We've got a few committees and groups that we're, I guess, looking to spread the work out a little bit. We've got people that have been on committees and such. So just looking not to stretch people too thin, but actually divide up the work evenly. The diversity inclusivity committee, I think I was on all these committees at one time. So this will be good to have folks be singularly focused in 1, maybe 2 areas going forward. And Dr. Long, if you want to talk about each one, or you want to talk about a broader topic?
I'll just kind of give an overview and we'll talk about the folks who have served in those roles. And I think to try and gauge if they want to continue in those roles. And one of them is kind of a new tap, so to speak. But, to Jeff's point, the beauty of being on a 5-member board is you get to be involved in everything. The challenge of being on a 5-member board is you get to be involved in everything. So, certainly I think everything we are talking about here has value and is important to us. That's grounded in the recently adopted goals that you came up with on a board, and one of these pieces has to do with. But in our policy committee, we know kind of stalled for a lot of understandable reasons. Ready to start that work in earnest. You did a little piece of that tonight. And I believe in the past, Bill and John both sat in that group as board members. And let me go through them all before we make any decisions, just so the audit committee the board knows we are currently undergoing an audit from the state controller. That focus is going to be on technology, but they have made some other suggestions. And one of those was relative to having a standing board member on the audit committee, though typically one, if not several of the members of the board do attend the audit committee meetings, to have a certain individual designated. Strategic planning is going to be the continued work out of the goal setting that the board did, and that will involve board members as well as constituent groups. And we have to be careful in any of these cases to not have a quorum of the board. So we're limited to 2 members. So there's no decision-making in that process. And the last is the diversity and inclusivity work that, again, has kind of stalled, based and grounded in large part on those goals. We're ready to move forward with that. Jen has served in that capacity in the past. So I think what we're looking for is 2 members to the policy committee. If the sitting members would like to continue, we need a designated member of the audit committee. We would like 2 people for the strategic planning committee, and 1 board member to hopefully continue with the diversity and inclusivity work. So I'll stop talking and let you talk amongst yourselves, and you can decide where we're going to land with all that.
I'm happy to continue on the policy committee, if that would be helpful.
Yeah, I'm happy to let John continue on the policy committee meeting also. Listen, and I had no problem being there. It's not my strong suit, right? Again, Ms. Ball can contest to my limited reading abilities in that matter, but policy, it was a tough committee to be on. I applaud John for wanting to step up for that. I would not mind being the audit committee member and part of the strategic planning committee, if that's available and an option.
I would be joining John on policy. If nobody else wants it, I'm assuming nobody else wants it.
After Bill's ringing endorsement.
Oh, geez. I would love to stay on the diversity and inclusivity up until and even after, as long as you let me.
I also wouldn't mind joining Bill on strategic planning if you need somebody else to be on that one. You said you needed 2 for that one.
I'll take 1 or 2 on each of them.
Yeah, up to 2. I mean, if we had one that 2 is ideal, but if it's only 1, that's fine. As long as we don't get 3 where there's a quorum.
Okay, I can be on it unless if somebody else is dying to have it, great. But I'm willing to. I can do it if nobody else really wants.
So right now I have John and Courtney have stepped up for policy. Bill is interested in being the designated member of the audit committee. Strategic planning, I have Bill and Courtney indicating an interest, and Jen on diversity and inclusivity.
And Jen, if you need a hand with the diversity and inclusivity committee, I'd be happy to do that as well.
Thanks, John.
Jeff, do you have any thoughts or comments, or we'll go with that for now?
No, I think that's good. Thank you, everybody, for stepping up and taking on these roles and leaving me nothing to serve on.
And while we have no children next week and I am working, I'm going to be doing a lot of legwork to get all of these conversations up and running, so stay tuned.
We do have one other thing that, from the update that you gave us, Dr. Long, about your conversations with the village. I guess I'm gonna throw Bill under the bus here. Just because Bill goes to all the village board meetings for the most part. Bill,
Jeff, before you continue, I'm getting all kinds of feedback. I don't know if that's me or not, but I'm going to try to take myself out of the video.
Actually, if everybody mutes except Jeff, it might.
Everybody hear me okay? Just give me a thumbs up. Okay. I think it was you, Dr. Long. You were the loud one. Just based on the update that you gave us last week, you were looking for someone to include a member of the board to be part of the future relevant conversations related to pilot programs, etc. I was going to throw Bill under the bus for that, just from the standpoint of it's not a committee, but being part of the village conversations pretty fluidly yourself. Would that be something that you could continue, Bill, as part of the dialogue with the village?
Yeah, I would definitely be involved in that. And later on in tonight's meeting, having to do with our assessed rebates and things, which also involves the village. But yeah, I can do that, and I'll explain more later in the meeting.
And in my not so subtle way, I was actually trying to pull Bill under the bus on that one in my update. So no disrespect to anybody else on the board, but I do think it also aligns with the responsibilities of the audit committee as well.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate you serving in the liaison role. Is there anything further? I think we have all our committees and appointees and et cetera, and Dr. Long will be, as you said, consolidating and getting the conversations continued and set up for those that weren't part of those committees in the past. Anything else on that, folks? Before we move on.
I have everything I need, Jim.
All right, we will move along to business office for information. Enclosed for the information of the board are copies of the following warrants and the claims auditor report for the month of January 2021. We've got, it looks like Fund A, warrant numbers 34, 36, and 37. The amounts, $158,671.07, $73,703.19, and $24,488.88. Anything about those that you have any questions about before we move into business office for approval? Okay, we will move along to business office for approval. I've got a budget transfer resolution. Are there any questions about that resolution before we have it? All right, can I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District approve the attached budget transfers for January 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution carries. We'll move along to the treasurer's report. Enclosed for the board's approval is a copy of the treasurer's report for the month ending January 31st, 2021. Are there any questions about this report?
I had questions, but they were answered in the email, so I'm good to go.
Okay. Thanks, Bill. Can I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District approve the treasurer's report for the month ending January 31st, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution carries. We will move along to disposal of items. Superintendent's recommendation that the Board of Education, in accordance with the district policy 6900, authorize the disposition of the following items as a attached list: 6 smartboards and 7 textbooks. Do we need a resolution for that? Because there's not one listed.
Yes, we will. So if somebody can take the recommendation and kind of shape it into a resolution, that would be great.
Give it a shot. Let's see. Be it resolved that the items listed below are, let's see. Be it resolved the Board of Education of Manans Union Free School District approve the disposition, authorize the disposition of the items below as listed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thanks, Courtney.
Aye.
Resolution carries. We move along to CASDA agreement, strategic planning. Anybody have anything on that, or do we want to go right to the resolution? All right, we'll go right to the resolution, please.
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District approve the agreement between Manans Union Free School District and CASDA for the development of a strategic plan for the district.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Resolution carries. We will move along. Establishment of a 2019-2020 actual non-resident tuition rates for McKinney-Vento reimbursement purposes in circumstances where students protected under the McKinney-Vento legislation move to permanent housing outside of the Manans Union Free School District but choose to remain at Manan School, we are able to directly bill the new district of residence. To do so, we must utilize board-approved tuition rates. They are as follows. Any discussion item on that, or we want to go right to the resolution? Okay, can I have a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District establish the following actual tuition rates for the 2019-2020 school year as listed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Opposed? Resolution carries. Moving along, tax refund, small claims assessment review settlement. Can I get actually, does anybody have any questions about this first one?
Yeah, can we open this up for discussion? Can I make a motion to open this for discussion?
Sure can. You don't need a motion. We can just discuss.
We can just discuss?
Yes.
So it's my understanding that, one, we really don't have any way to do anything about this. We can't fight it. We can't say anything. We can't do anything because it's already been a court-ordered thing. My problem is, and again, if there's feedback, I don't know if that's me or not. If you can hear me, I'll keep talking. Okay. So this is a big issue in Long Island with reassessments, right? Property owners are going out and saying, hey, my house is no longer worth $400,000. It's only worth $300,000. And in Albany County, it's a 61% tax rate. So my tax rate, instead of $2,700 a year, is going to be $2,400 a year. If everyone in Manans does that, next year, we're going to lose $300,000 in tax revenue, right? And this is the trend now, right? We're starting to see economics hit. We're starting to see COVID impact hits, and everybody's looking to save a dollar, and they're going out and having their assessments reevaluated at a lower amount. It's a problem. It's a problem for the housing market because it devaluates property values. Devaluates property values, brings down the economics of the area, which brings down the housing of the area, and it's going to be bad for the community. We cannot not approve this resolution, right? It has to be done. It's a court-ordered thing. I'm in opposition to it. I'm going to vote no because I think it's the wrong thing to do. People looking broadly need to realize that you own a house and there's an obligation in every property to pay school taxes to educate children. Maybe not yours, but children. I am opposed to this tax adjustment on their assessment. My 2 cents.
I had two questions actually. There's this one and then there's another one listed. The second one that's listed, are we allowed to talk about what property it is? Do we know?
Yeah,
I was gonna raise my objection then, not to cut anyone off. I was gonna talk about the next one then because it's a commercial property and it's a little different. And yes, we can say what property it is.
Yep.
And I did give some detail around that in the update this week. I don't know if folks got to it, but it is a commercial property. It's the former Price Chopper property, and that significant adjustment, and that's why I put it in the update because it was significant, is tied to the closing of the only remaining business on that property.
That's right. Okay, and then the other question I had was, it's a dollar reduction, and when we do a budget at the end of the year and we get approval, it's like a dollar amount. It's not a rate, right? We're not actually approving the rate. We're approving we can raise X amount of dollars from our tax base. So does that money that we're losing on that property come out of people's?
No, remember, we were anticipating this and we had set up our tax certiorari reserve accordingly. So what we had anticipated, it's not at that level, even though I certainly understand Bill's objections. They did not give the reduction for 1920. They refused it for 1920. They are granting it for 2021. And again, we are involved in those conversations with the assessor to some extent, Bill, but ultimately the decision, as you say, is theirs.
Right.
We had anticipated that could happen for 1920 and 21. And we put that money aside to offset that without touching the general fund and impacting our budget if we find ourselves in a position of needing to do that. So it wouldn't be spread to others. It would be absorbed through that planning on our part.
Okay, but in general, when we approve a budget, we approve it for X amount of dollars, right? We don't actually approve it for Y percentage per $1,000 of assessment. We approve it for total dollars, and however that works out, that works out.
We approve and the voters approve the expenditure budget, not the revenue.
Just wanted to make sure that I understood that correctly. Thank you.
Anybody else want to discuss anything related to this?
Do you want me to read it in, Jeff?
I'll just say I share Bill's frustration with this, but again, there's not much you can do about it.
All right, can I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, hereby approve the tax refund in the amount of $551.09 as a result of the assessment review of filing AR 57-20.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
I'm also opposed. The resolution carries 3-2. Tax refund stipulation and order settlement. Discussion?
We don't need a motion on this one. We'll just discuss again.
Yep.
So here's the problem I have with this one, and it continues on the same talk that I had in the first one. The problem is with commercial real estate. Commercial real estate is valued at whoever shows up to look at it the day they look at it. There is no set price anywhere in the county of Albany, which this case went to, that says how much commercial real estate is worth. One guy's going to say it's worth $1 a square foot. Another guy's going to say it's worth $197 a square foot. And this is the problem with commercial real estate. This property's been paying, I don't know. I have it written down somewhere. They've been paying an exorbitant amount of taxes, right, over the course of their term. But their assessment was reduced from $2.5 million to $900,000, right? Their assessed value. And again, you go back on the 61% Albany County tax rate and the 28% that the school gets off of that, that number is reduced down. So the revenue lost on this property moving forward is in that $40,000 range per year, right? Because someone said this commercial real estate's no longer worth the $15 a square foot. It's only worth 50 cents a square foot. There's a problem with that. But these assessments moving forward are going to be, there's going to be more of them. People are going to look for ways to save money because they need to, and it's going to affect revenue that the district's going to get moving forward. I'm opposed to this resolution, but it's court ordered and we actually can't do anything about it. Personal opinion.
Anyone else? All right, can we get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, hereby approve the tax refund in the amount of $30,796.31 as a result of the assessment review of filing index 904-591-19 and 905-105-20.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
A grudging aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
I am also opposed, but the motion carries 3-2. Okay, Town of Colony Community Development Block Grant Subrecipient Agreement. Enclosed for the board is a copy of the Community Development Block Grant Agreement with the Town of Colony. Any discussion item on this?
Just a really quick, right? It's money that the town got from the government to fund and or provide low to moderate income not housing, but
Resources,
means, maybe
resources.
Technology
The
resources.
used.
resources, right, for low to moderate income family. So has any of that been diverted to the community in general? Let's say, I know we have money that was set up and it helped Wi-Fi at, and I believe Wi-Fi at the shelter
That's out of this grant, yes.
out of this grant.
Yep.
Is there any other discussion or use for monies to help some other areas of our community?
Yeah, there was actually something in the Manans activities about it this week, kind of soliciting some feedback. So I certainly can't and won't speak for the village. But when we were contacted, there were certain things we as a school could do under the auspices of this. Kathy, I give her all the credit, really took the lead on working with the town of Colony. It was her who brought the concept of doing the Wi-Fi at the Skylar, and that happened because of that conversation. So yes, there are other opportunities. What I'll say is, frankly, I'm not sure what they are, Bill, because they don't impact us. I was worried about us.
Thank you.
Anybody else? If not, can I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District approve the agreement between Manans Union Free School District and the Town of Colony for the 2020-2021 school year as per the attached agreement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution carries. All right, number 9, we'll move along to personnel matters. Do we want to do the green sheet first?
Yeah, I just want to confirm that all the board members got the green sheet that I sent out just prior to the meeting. And I would suggest that if there's no opposition, that yes, we move right to the green sheet first. Yeah.
Everybody okay with that? It has to do with
Resignations, positions we're going to be filling.
Can we ask a question, or is this cross over into, so 2 questions. One, didn't we just approve Ashley Jewett to be a part-time clerical worker? Is she removing herself from all positions?
Yes, as far as I know.
Secondly, because they're both 8 positions, are we missing something, or is there something going on with aides? Maybe do they need, I don't know, more training or something? It just seemed to be.
So
I don't know. I don't know. I know what the
can't-
question is. I want to ask. I don't know how I can ask it without giving information.
And I think you are probably correct there, Bill. But what I'll say in both of these cases, in one case, it was a situation where somebody received an opportunity for a better position from their perspective. And in the other case, it was a family matter.
Thank you.
All right, so the first one, resignations, teacher aide Ashley Jewett. Can I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District accept the enclosed copy of the email from Ashley Jewett dated January 18th, 2021, resigning from her position as a teacher aide from the Manans Union Free School District effective immediately.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution carries. Move along to teacher aide Shannon Devane. Can I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District accept the enclosed copy of the email from Shannon Devane dated January 25th, 2021, resigning from her position as a teacher aide from the Manans Union Free School District effective immediately.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Resolution carries. All right, we'll move along to back to the main sheet. Substitute teachers fully cleared. Can I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District approve the following substitute teachers for the 2020-2021 school year as listed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Resolution carries. Teacher aide, Jacqueline Groves Spencer. Can I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District approve Jacqueline Groves Spencer as a teacher aide effective February 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Resolution carries. We'll move along to homework club tutors. Can I get a resolution, please?
I'm sorry, Jeff. Is this Mrs. Spencer who was with us before? Okay, welcome.
Yes.
Welcome back, Mrs. Spencer. Look forward to seeing
Very
you.
glad to have her back.
Yes.
Yep.
And her smiling face, always smiling. Homework club tutors. Can I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District approve the following homework club tutors for the 2019-2020 school year at a rate of $25 per hour. Patricia O'Connell.
Second.
Should that be 2020, 2021?
Yes.
Yes, good job.
Yep, good call.
2020, 2021.
Second as amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution carried. Board of Education matters, CSE, CPSE recommendations. Can I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District approve the CSE, CPSE recommendations as submitted.
Second. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Resolution carries. Student matters, class size update as of it says February, or it says January, but I believe that's February. 311 total students. It looks like 181 in person and 130 virtual.
It also says 2020. It's supposed to be 2/6/2021.
Yep, that's right.
That would be as of Friday when the agenda went out. Yes.
Gotcha. There's no resolution there, so just FYI to folks. Move along to superintendent's comments.
So I'll speak first to our recent remote period, and then I'm going to kind of roll that into, I'm just looking, we had the comment come in. I apologize. My next item of public comment. So I realize for our parents and for our families, a decision to go remote is very challenging. And I want to acknowledge my appreciation to our families for their understanding and their cooperation. As was shared in the communications that went out to families, it really centered around the number of staff members who needed to be quarantined and the ability to serve students. Those staff members are ready, willing, and able to work remotely, but because of directives from Albany County, can't be here in the building, obviously. I'll stress our infection rate remains incredibly low and our numbers are incredibly low, but that quarantine casts a very wide net in Albany County, which required us to go remote. So again, my appreciation to our families for understanding the need for that, for cooperating with us, but and I know I've been trying to commend everybody for their efforts during this, but I have to take this opportunity to talk about our teachers and what rock stars they are. They have done an incredibly amazing job to turn on a dime. They leave here every night knowing they may not come back the next day and have to be prepared to teach our kids from their living rooms. There are some of you sitting on this meeting as board members who live with that every day too, so I commend you. And really, it is not easy work. I know it's not easy for our parents. It's not easy for our kids. It's a heavy lift for everybody, but our teachers are really doing an incredible and an amazing job. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that publicly. So as we roll then into the public communication, I will share that I am pleased with the manners in which we have been able to increase our communications to our families and to get timely and updated information out through a variety of venues to not leave people wondering or unsure to the extent we can during the circumstances. I think we've been very successful in our rollout of School Messenger. We added to that platform last week the text messaging. I think there are some people who might be thinking we're hearing from me or from us a little bit too much. But I would rather that be the concern, that that information is not getting out there. So I'm really pleased with what that opportunity has done for us, along with the utilization of our public information specialist to help us shape and determine how to best get that information out there. You know, we had our web.
Dr. Long, sorry to interrupt. Have we seen any increase in feedback as a result of the increased communication?
We've had a few people call and say, can you take these numbers off the list? And honestly, primarily in those cases, it's people who have listed a word unless it's an emergency. It's really not conducive for them to receive that message. And I do think between that and then some pretty targeted outreach from our teachers and direct emails, just the fact that we have captured the email addresses of all of our parents and families is huge. And kind of, John, your question goes into my next point. We have also the webpage to highlight things, and we have Facebook to push some information out there. I think what I would impress the most to folks, though, if you have questions, we are always available to address those. Reach out directly to your teacher via phone, via email. Email is probably the quickest way to get a turnaround. Just given the nature of instruction right now and the ability for staff members to monitor that during the day. If you are unsuccessful in reaching out to a staff member or are not pleased with the response, then my phone is always available, my email is always available, and I don't want to speak for Mrs. Canavo, but I know the same is true. And I'm going to circle back and say, you know, we talked about what rock stars our teachers are being during these difficult times. There is nothing more deflating than when a parent or a community member has a concern, and rather than pick up and call the teacher or reach out to the administration, they blast them on Facebook. It's really tough for our teachers, and it's uncalled for. Our doors and our phones and our emails are open to anybody. Please reach out if you need something, if you want something, if you have a concern. Please don't put it out there in a venue where people who aren't even associated with Manan School don't know what we are doing and how we are doing to comment negatively upon our teachers when they are working so hard.
I would concur with you, Dr. Long. I call social media a coward's platform. I think that use the chain of command. It's a very volatile time, as everyone knows, with this pandemic, and will continue to be that way. We all get frustrated. We're all emotional, but at the end of the day, a social media platform is not the platform to air your grievances, because it's very hurtful. Our teachers and staff are working extremely hard. They're working nights and weekends. Not that they weren't before, but they're having to do it with all kinds of things like taking care of their families and everything else going on in their lives. Just to hold their head above water, to educate our children and to service all of our children in our school community. So, you know, thank you for saying that, Dr. Long. I too, you know, just please follow, reach out to your teacher, if not the principal, if not the superintendent. We will get you the answers. We will have the discussion. We are accountable to you as public taxpayers. But at the same time, it's not helpful and it is hurtful when social media platforms are used because someone has, you know, didn't get a call back for a day or something like that. Not professional and frankly, just not behaving like adults. So please use the opportunity to communicate with the school district. They're more than happy to hear from you and your feedback and your questions and concerns, as well as comments and compliments as well.
I don't want to chime in, but everything that both of you just said is 100% accurate. I'm not really a Facebook user. If anyone knows me, I'd be more than happy to speak to you face to face or on the phone or If I have to, I use, one finger to text people, but the way it's being described, it's not the way to get your information across. But why don't you thank a teacher?
Yeah.
Why don't you thank the guy who makes lunches and breakfast for, the kids in the school? Why don't you thank the people that stand out in the parking lot and say, slow down because you're going to hit a kid? Take the effort to say thank you.
So my last item after those two is just that, and this goes for our parents, this goes for our kids, this goes for our teachers, this goes for our board members. I think our February break is much deserved. And I truly hope everybody has the opportunity to do a little bit of rest, relaxation, unwind, step away from it all for a while. It's okay. Enjoy, please.
Thank you for that, Dr. Long. Principal's comments, Ms. Canavo.
Thank you for having me join you this evening. To start, I just wanted to comment on the work that the teachers and our students are doing around the celebration of Black History Month. Across classrooms, I would say that they are sharing diverse stories, both in person and virtually. They have a virtual library available for students with read-alouds that include diverse authors and diverse characters. Our teachers are participating in a door decorating contest. We are also doing 28 days of Black history, including different stories and celebrating both past and present members of the Black community. In music, we have 2 shows that are going to be brought virtually to our students under the direction of Mrs. Hayes. We have Stories and Songs from Haiti, and then Women in Jazz with Tia Fuller. These are 2 opportunities that we normally may not have had, but because so many things are happening virtually, we are able to bring both of those to our students. Students are also working in art class with Mrs. Testo around different activities to celebrate Black history as well. And then lastly, I will continue the nightly readings over February break, and I will be choosing diverse authors and diverse stories that feature diverse characters as well. Next up on the agenda for you, I have an event that's coming through from the PTA, and our teachers are going to support that event. Their parents, as partners presentation that they will do Wednesday evening, is going to be around technology platforms. We had put out quite a bit of information and had a technology page available for parents with how-to videos. The PTA is going to host this parent as partners to talk about Seesaw, Google Classroom, and Power School. We figured this was a good time because we had a lot of in-person families have to experience 2 weeks of remote learning. So we thought that this would be timely. They could ask questions. They'll get a presentation about, really from a parent perspective, how to navigate the platforms. So they will hold that this evening. I wanted to thank Lindsay Lapari. She has really worked to organize this. And then we have Mrs. Bezito and Ms. Trainer presenting for Seesaw. We have Mrs. Stanton and Mrs. Robluski working on Google Classroom. And then we have Mrs. Ball and Mrs. Irvin who are going to do some work around Power School. And the families have the time that they can log in. We'll push that out through Messenger. And then our teachers will also send that out through some direct communications. And the PTA has also put that out to families through their emailing site. We recently celebrated our citizens and scholars. We had recognized a middle school scholar, Sam Dunsker, and our middle school citizen was Bessem Ojong. Our elementary scholar was Michaela Bryce, and then we had 3 elementary citizens, Avery Pluth, Hassan Ahmed, and Astrid McNamara. All of the students are shining examples of what we look for in our citizens and scholars. Our teachers have a hard time choosing and nominating, but that's a good problem to have. We have a lot of great kids in our school, and I would say congratulations to those 6 students and their families. Not on the agenda, but I think it is definitely worth mentioning is we had our virtual spelling bee, and I would like to congratulate Aditya Sivakumar. He will represent us in the Capital Region Spelling Bee this school year. Our runner-up was Adi Thumalin, who was one of our remote learners, and Meenakshi Nair as well. So congratulations to all the students. I think they went 29 rounds before we finally had the winning word of marquee. So we have some pretty impressive spellers out there. Congratulations to them as well. And then last but not least, we took the opportunity to update you after our elementary kids came back. We just did something very similar for our middle school students. We had a group of middle schoolers return to school with us in person from remote learning. You know, it's always great to see the couple of kids when they come back. They, for middle schoolers who usually half the time look like they're half asleep when they come in the door, our handful of kids, they could not have been happier to be back in school with their friends and just even talking to the families when they had the options to bring their kids back. Some of the kids were just so simply excited to come back, and the kids were excited, or the families were excited for their kids to come back. They had really been impressed with the work that our teachers and our custodians, and really the work the whole community had done, and they felt, you know, they felt really good about sending their kids back, which I think is really, you know, really shows the hard work that the group as a whole have done. So thank you very much. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but some good January and February news.
And I'll say the same thing I said when our elementary students had to come back. As excited as the kids who came back were, seeing their friends watch them walk through the door was pretty awesome. You're muted, Jeff.
Sorry about that. So thank you, Ms. Canavel. We'll move along to informational material. The winter recess, as Dr. Long mentioned, is next week, 15th through the 19th. Enjoy the time away if you do get a chance to get away. And our next board meeting is Monday, March 8th at 6:30 p.m. Miscellaneous. Does anybody have anything? Ladies first. Courtney, go ahead.
Just a couple of comments from the last PTA meeting. The PTA is working on organizing some virtual events, and some of them were potentials, and some of them were definitely going to happen. But you know, keep an eye out for those. I think it'll be a great way for families to connect, especially some of our families who have been remote and who continue to be remote. That's good. If anybody is interested in helping with an event or planning an event, please reach out to the PTA and let them know that if you have a skill or just an interest, you know, they could use some more help, some more chair people over there. And they're also going to be looking for 2 new board members to serve in the next 2 years. That's going to be, you know, recruitment's tough in a regular year. In a virtual year, it's going to be really tough. So if anybody can think of anybody who might be willing to step up and fill a position, they'd be really happy about that. You can contact, I'm on the nominating committee, or you can contact the PTA about that.
Anybody else?
Do I get to go next? Because I'm the next lady. Just a few things. I do try to take an opportunity at the end of every board meeting to thank our teachers. I really don't know if people truly understand, you know, what is being done and how much people have learned. And when Dr. Long spoke about just keeping your head above the water, it's so very true, but you do it because you love children and you just want to do the best. But grace goes a long way. So again, thank you to our teachers, thank you to our principals, our staff, Dr. Long. I would just like to speak on the communication. I think it is going very well. I mean, I do look over at my phone when I'm at work and see Manan's school and know that I'll have a voicemail and that I don't have to pick up right away. But I think you heard the call of more communication, and you've answered that call. I really do feel like I know what's going on at all times. And the last piece I will just say about the middle school return is I know my daughter came home very happy that some of her friends were coming back from remote learning, and it was just like the beginning of the school year for her again. She's like, so-and-so is back, and so-and-so is back, and this one's sitting next to me. So You're absolutely right when you say the children are just as excited as the staff to see the children come through that door. All right, Bill, you're up. Ladies are done.
Thank you. Talking about the communication, thank you for that. If someone or a community member or people in the community, let's say me, are not getting the text message alerts, who in the school should they notify about that? Is that something the principal does or the principal's secretary's office, or how does that
No,
work?
you want to reach out to Sue McCormick, and I think that has gone out in most of the communications, though if you're not getting the communications, you wouldn't know that. But Sue McCormick is our school number. Her direct extension is 101, and it's smccormick@manans.org. At any time, and we have received some calls to add or to change some numbers, and that usually can be done within a 24-hour turnaround period.
Thank you for that. I have a few more comments. One of them is, right, so everyone at this point should know we're in the middle of a pandemic and it's a rough time, right? Things are not well for people. There's been a lot of tough go of it. Pretty sure everyone at some point now has knows someone that has tested positive, and some people are not doing well. I just had this comment to make. Out of tragedy comes innovation and technology advancement. It happened after World War II, it happens after planes crash, and it's happening now with COVID. I was pleased to hear that the lack of in-person meetings and in-person instruction has increased the number of people reaching out for help and attendance in virtual meetings in our school district. Tonight's board meeting is a prime example. I've been on the board now for more than a handful of years, and we have, outside of the teacher representation, one, maybe two attendees. The little screen says there's 14 people plus the board and staff here tonight. And it's been that way through most of the attendance. And I have heard that people are reaching out more for help and what they need virtually. So this is actually, although tragic, been a good thing. My thoughts are with those who have suffered, but let's keep our thoughts positive that we will get past everything and we'll be better people for it. And I've heard that line come out of Dr. Long's mouth a few times before. I would like to ask, and I have in the past, about the staff in the school. What is the staff's current concerns or worries, if they have any? What are their thoughts or issues, especially about remote learning and fearfulness of COVIDs and things like that? I know you can't actually say how many people have been vaccinated, whether it's one or two, because it runs into that HIPAA thing, but are we on track? Are people, are they doing what they're supposed to be doing in the district to get us to the next point? I would love to hear some comments on that.
Sure, and I think I'm going to echo a few things I said at the last board meeting, Bill, but to your point, I do have one update. Certainly we want to be respectful of folks' privacy, and that includes our teachers and our staff, but also we want to be available to them and supportive of them. To that end, I think we have a very positive working relationship with our Teachers Association and the leadership. They know we are here, and if there is something that comes to them that they need help with, I am very optimistic they are not afraid to come and share that. You had voiced at prior meetings, do we have the supports in place that our faculty and staff and our teachers need? Based in part on those comments, we had an opportunity come our way for an employee assistance program, which is something that is typically available in larger districts because they have the capacity to do that. But we were able to bring that on board through BOCES, and actually at our staff meeting last Tuesday, our faculty and staff, because it's not limited to just our teachers, but to all of our staff, received all of the information they needed on how to access that and what it would provide for them. You allude to the HIPAA pieces. The nice part about this service and how we've been able to bring it on board for our faculty and staff is we have it at a minimum for the remainder of this year, and we will be able to assess at the end of the year how much it has been utilized. We won't know who utilized it and what they utilized it for, but we will be able to know if it is something our staff valued and took advantage of, and make a thoughtful decision then moving forward if that's something we want to continue to do. As far as staff's immediate needs, I think Jen has been doing a great job, Mrs. Canavo, of getting into classrooms, of talking with staff members, of identifying some challenges or some needs and providing the support that's needed for that.
That's great. I appreciate the information. I hope our community appreciates the information, right? We need to move forward in this aspect and continue on this. And there will be a long-term mental health related around all this. Everyone involved, especially teachers and the hard environment they are in. Definitely frontline workers, definitely. Thank you.
May I just add something about EAP? My school district has had EAP for a very long time, and I would, just reiterate what Dr. Long said. They offer so many services. I mean, like financial planning to legal free help. I mean, we didn't know really until we had a PD on it at the beginning of the coming back to school. And I mean, there are so many programs. So even over February break, take a look through and take advantage of it, because like I said, there is just a plethora of opportunities.
Jeff, you're muted.
Twice, that's 2 strikes. Anybody else? Are we good?
I'm good. I'll just be the strong silent type tonight.
All right. And mine will be very brief. I just wanted to take the opportunity to congratulate all 39 of the young middle school authors that got their, I think it was a 100-word mini saga that's going to be published in the, I believe, springtime at some point. So I just wanted to congratulate the middle school staff, as well as all the students that were chosen for this endeavor. And we can move along to public comment. Please note, during the public comment sessions, members of the community may address the board on agenda and non-agenda items. The board president may limit remarks of individual speakers to a reasonable time, and speakers must identify themselves and the topic on which they would like to make remarks. Does anybody have anything? I don't have anything in my email as of right now.
I see one, Jeff, that came in at 7:26. If you want, I can go ahead and read it.
It has not come through my phone yet.
Okay, I'll go ahead if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is from Taj Busky. Is it possible that schools will consider bringing back some after-school clubs back now that Albany County has approved high-risk sports? What will it take for the school to approve these types of activities, and does the board need to approve it? Let me start by saying, first, we have already brought a handful of clubs. Notably, though, those are things that are happening virtually at this point in time. Albany County actually just got the go-ahead today with the 4% for high-risk sports. I will tell you, this is not a conversation or a decision we will make lightly, and we probably will not make it quickly. Unlike other schools, we don't have students in competitive leagues, and the league and the play of the entire league depending on that, so we can be thoughtful in our discussion. We will use the same resources in making this decision as we have on all of our other decisions relative to bringing kids back to school and back to opportunities. What I will say I feel very strongly about, and certainly the decision is not mine alone, that our procedures and protocols that we have in place have been very effective in minimizing and making incredibly low locally our infection rate within our building. One of the big steps we have taken to do that is to have students stay within what is called cohorts during the course of the day. So if you are in a kindergarten class, you are with that kindergarten class for the day. If you are in one section of 6th grade, you are with that section of 6th grade for the day. You do minimal traveling throughout the building. Instead of kids going to teachers, teachers come to kids. And again, that's been highly effective. One of the risks in my mind, if we do an after-school club, is that we are bringing multiple kids from multiple cohorts together, which can be problematic with spread. So I think we have to consider that very carefully and very thoughtfully, and we will do that with our health and safety folks from BOCES who we've been working with throughout this process. The other piece I will speak to is we have been very cautious, and tonight's board meeting is a perfect example of this, not bringing people into our building who do not need to be in our building, and people who we don't have control over their travel and movements throughout the day. And this will be no surprise. I've been talking to some of the youth groups and organizations who typically use our building. I will stand very firmly right now that I do not think it's a good idea to bring travel teams or kids beyond our school community and kids beyond our in-person school community and or adult spectators into the building. And I will stand pretty firmly on that. That said, I'm all about opportunities for kids. So we will have these conversations thoughtfully. I won't say we will have them quickly. We will use the expertise that's available to us, and we'll go from there.
I think it'll also be an easier decision or discussion once we get into some warmer weather and we have the ability to meet outside in distance and do things and such. But right now, as we learn about other strains and spikes and things, I'm in full agreement with you, Dr. Long. At least me personally. I'm not representing the board. This is my personal opinion.
Can I chime in?
Of course.
Right. So sports not right. We got a lot going on. Jeff, you are too, and I know. And I agree with what Dr. Long's saying about looking carefully about some of the the travels and some of the AAU sports that have used the facilities, specifically the gym for basketball, right? Basketball is one of those winter sports Albany County just released and everything like that. In our school community, and I can attest to this because I see half the kids in my neighborhood, even though they're not in the same class and we keep them in the classes and cohorts, they're still mingling around, right? They still are with each other. And we still have done very well as a community and a school to keep the numbers down and low. I would press forward on allowing some of those clubs to happen with our own children, our own Manans children. I would love to be part of those discussions and offer anything I can do to help on that. And further discussion I would like to have with, some of the travel sports and the AAU teams to come in. I do agree spring would be better. I was completely wrong on my position on soccer for the season. I was quite sure that once soccer got off the outdoor fields and went into indoor where they played Aframs is the only indoor facilities around. I was quite sure that soccer would be shut down for the season, and it did not. So if we could look at some of the other avenues, and I'd love to take part in some of those conversations to see if we can't figure something out. Oh, as a parent, not as a board member, right? And did I say that? Which hat did I have on when I was talking? I gotta make sure I'm very clear about what position I'm in.
Got a pair of glasses above your head, not a hat.
Well, I put my glasses on. Parent position.
All right. I do not see any other public comments at this point, Jeff. I don't know if you see anything coming through.
No, the other one just came through, so yeah, I don't have anything, just updated. Okay. So see that there's no more questions. Can I get a motion to adjourn? We are going to be going into our budget workshop, so we need to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn. John, you're muted. I think second is muted.
I'll second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Right.
We are adjourned.
Does anybody need a minute before we go into budget workshop?
60 seconds. Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, Sam, I'm going to stop the video for a sec.
For those in attendance, we're just taking a brief break between the board meeting and the budget workshop. We will get started shortly. While we're waiting for everybody else to come back, I am going to try to share my screen, and if you want to let me know if that works, that would be great. Okay. Okay. Am I on mute or not on mute?
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
All right. I've got to figure out how to mute myself while I'm sharing my screen.
Back.
All right, I'm trying to unmute and I'm trying to get it into slideshow mode if I can. All right, are folks still seeing what I am sharing?
Seeing your desktop at this
Like
point.
your desktop with all your files.
I
are
see a
on.
lot of icons and a lady in a purple dress.
Okay, that's my daughter, so that's not what you're supposed to see. So hold on one second. All right. Let's try that again. All right, now do you see the slide presentation?
Yep.
I'm going to keep it on this view, which I know has the slides down the side, but if I go to slideshow view, that's when you see the things that aren't going to help you get through the budget presentation. So we'll start going through this. I have Kathy in the room with me as well, who will chime in on a couple of slides. The board should have received in their packets both the PowerPoint presentation as well as the updated parameters. Not a lot of updates at this point, but we will reference those throughout the course of the presentation. The first couple of slides you will see is not going to be anything new. We will budget from the perspective of what we know to be true at this moment in time, and this year, more than ever, there is no doubt that these things will change as we go through the budget process. You saw this slide last time. We will shape our process on what our students need, and that includes the social emotional aspects that we alluded to in many parts of our conversation earlier this evening, as well as what we want for our students programmatically, and keeping in mind how we can do both given the challenges that we faced. Our work this year will also be shaped on the recently drafted goals that the board developed, and that will lead to our strategic planning work moving forward. So when we left the last workshop, we left you with a slide about what to expect at this workshop. And we have the same information on this slide moving into this presentation in a little bit different order. The updated parameters, we'll touch on those briefly in a moment. Any information out of the Capitol and Governor's office, I'll have a lot of commentary on that in a moment. The tax cap calculation, if possible, and it is possible tonight, and then our 2021-2022 draft one budget. And we were prepared to do that, and then the executive budget proposal came out. We were certainly anticipating that. By law, it has to be out by a certain date. However, it looks incredibly different this year, and it is based in large part on assumptions on the governor's part of what we will see at the federal level. And I won't get too much into that now, but just hit some major bullet points. The executive budget proposal as we received it and the accompanying budget runs are certainly uncertain at best as proposed. As the governor was developing the budget, he looked at two options. One, what he's referring to as fair funding from the federal stimulus, and that is $15 billion in federal stimulus. And then what he is considering worst case scenario, that is $6 billion in federal stimulus. And though there's optimism for more than the $6 billion, that is what the budget was built upon. And that is what the aid runs came from. I think a key factor in this budget and the budget runs is that the federal stimulus is being used to supplant and not supplement state funding for education. And I know some of you got the opportunity to sit through the Capitol Conference earlier this week. And I'm going to echo the words of Shelley Mayer, who's the Senate Education Chair, relative to this. It's disappointing. The federal stimulus funds are intended to be COVID relief and not the basis for school funding. And the fact that this is being done is problematic, not only for this year. And if you've done any of the reading from any of the organizations, it's even more problematic for subsequent years where it's creating a fiscal cliff for us, and really going back to the days of the gap elimination. Also concerning and troubling is the manner in which the STAR exemption appears on the aid runs for the first time ever. And this is equally problematic for our taxpayers who in the past have seen a reduction on their taxes based on the STAR. Now they will be required to pay in full their taxes and get a rebate back. There's a lot of pieces and parts to this that are not fully understood at this point in time because it is a first, and we will continue to learn more about that. The next item is not something new. It's coming up yet again, where the governor is proposing that we take certain expense-based aids, 11 of them in total, and they're listed there for you on the slide, and roll those into one block grant aid that would stay essentially frozen from this point moving forward. You know from our prior discussions that our expense-based aids are one of the few places we can pretty accurately predict what our aid will be in subsequent years. And two big ticket items listed on that list are our transportation and our BOCES aid. We made those BOCES purchases because they're good services and they're things we need for our kids, but we also made those purchases knowing that we would get reimbursement back in the subsequent years. And if that goes away, so does that reimbursement. Similarly with transportation, we count on the aid from the prior year, and that's compounded even further this year because we are not fully expending at this point in time what we had anticipated for transportation based on the number of kids who are sitting in front of us. So not only is it troubling that there's a proposal again to roll those all into one, but the fact that that one number would then be frozen based on this year's numbers, which are not an accurate reflection of our true expenses in those areas. Let me stop there for a second and ask if there are any questions before we move on.
Just to clarify, right, last year, transportation aid was, they funded that, or they're funding that, correct? Just to clarify.
There was some question about during the closure bill, if they were going to fund the transportation when we delivered items and food to students. That has been answered now by the Department of Budget. We will get the funding on that. Also, kind of aligned with that is there was some uncertainty if there were going to be continued holdbacks or full funding of aids that were due to us this year. And it has been confirmed that we will get all money that we were anticipating this year. Or in the case of transportation, we will get the aid on our expenses associated with transporting kids, food, and materials.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, we'll move on then to the updated parameters. Okay, this is the same list that you saw the last time that we met. And you will notice a few red asterisks. Those are items that have been updated for you, and what Kathy did in that was anything that was a change, she updated in red. Some of those are pretty typical things or information that has been available to us since we last met. You notice there's only 4. I just made that smaller. I don't know how I did that. There's only four items marked there. Certainly there is to come. Again, one of our big numbers for us, and it is unique to Bonanza, is our tuition cost. We actually just received today the mid-year bill from our largest receiving high school. So with that information, we should be able to do some pretty significant forecasting for those expenses for next year. And similarly, we just received today the BOCES, what's called the final service request, which is where we look ahead and we see what services we currently have through BOCES, what we want to continue and or add. And we will be able to come back with some more definitive, not final, but definitive figures in those 2 regards. And these parameters are something we implemented a few years ago because they do help us to see the changes throughout the process. Okay, next slide is the governor's proposed budget and the caveat why it's misleading, and that's going to go into the next slide as well. And like I said at the onset of this presentation, what we received this year really does look very different than what we received in the past and how it is laid out. And I'm going to step aside now and let Kathy hop in here and kind of work with you through. She's going to try and talk from where she is. You let us know if you can hear her. If not, we will swap out seats.
So the foundation aid is about, first of all, we have a budget comparison.
It's not great. You come over here. Okay. She's coming over here. Hold on.
So if you're looking at the slide, this is a comparison of last year's executive budget proposal and this year's budget proposal, but it's set up the way this year a little differently than we've seen it in the past. So if you're looking at the foundation aid, it is flat. It's frozen at a 1920 level. For the last 3 years, foundation aid has been frozen or proposed to be frozen. Service aid is the consolidation of the 11 expense-based aids we discussed in the prior slide. 2 major concerns for us are transportation and BOCES aid, which would be frozen at this time or at this level forever. Building aid, private and public excess cost aids are not changing the formulas. They are running as intended. The building aid projection I have highlighted in yellow. This number is not projected correctly. We shall see an increase in our aid by approximately $460,000 due to the closeout of our capital projects. If you take a look at the subtotals from last year to this year, the governor is projecting a $93,820,000 increase, equating to an 8.6% increase in aid over the prior year. To account the red pandemic adjustment of $85,013, this is being deducted from the 2021 aid. There is no adjustment in the 21 or 22 projection at this time. The next line is the newly added star line. This is the first time the star has been shown as a state aid category. The state subtotal now shows a decrease from the prior year of $139,919, or 10.56% reduction in aid from the prior year. You will see on the 2021 Federal CARES Act restoration in the amount of $85,013 and the 21-22 COVID-19 supplemental stimulus in the amount of $303,734 are listed out. These are considered federal aid. We are held to the same guidelines with these as we are with the grants. And as you can see, those subtotals that I mentioned when I was just speaking to are listed right on the governor's run. You'll see the subtotal change of 90, or at the bottom, I'm sorry, of 93,828. And you'll see the subtotal change of 139,919 with really a reduction of 10.56.
Can I just ask Kathy before you head away?
Sure.
So and let me, maybe not everyone, the star exemption, right?
Yeah.
Homeowners on their taxes pay a reduced amount, but the state refunds that amount back to the district. Are you saying now the state is saying homeowner pay your entire amount and then the state's going to refund the homeowner directly?
Yep. Correct.
Yeah, so that's not going to happen, right? It's not going to happen. The people who are on fixed income and seniors are a proponent of the star rebate, let alone homeowners. I see that as them not paying it, and they're going to pay what they used to pay or are able to pay because they're on fixed income. It's going to be a cluster. I would suggest that we account for that. What'd you say it was, $225,000?
Yeah, as you can see on the run, what he did was the governor had put the star exemption in.
Yeah.
And then into the state aid formula, but then adjusted it out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah,
so the net amount.
we as a district should account for that if we expect on getting it, because there's no way, even if the state gets it and it goes into whatever fund they're going to calculate the star exempt, it's not going to come back. And I would suspect people just not to pay it. But moving forward, let's see, maybe there'll be a silver star.
Right. Okay, I'm going to hand you over to Dr. Long right now.
Jeff, can you mute when she's talking, just because there's a little bit of glitchy feedback.
And Bill, what the way the star is being put in and taken out is much like the pandemic adjustment was last year. I think there's still a lot to come on this star conversation. Kathy's actually sitting through a full webinar tomorrow with state aid planning on that topic in particular. And keep in mind, a lot of these things are tactics and are not new. And we don't like what we see right now. That's not new to a pandemic year. We've never seen what we like that comes out of the first run of the governor's office. We always refer to it as a floor and not a ceiling. And that's then where negotiations take place, where opinions and thoughts, much like yours, are heard, as well as advocacy. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we wrap up tonight. So really, we've kind of covered this. Why is this misleading? In reality, we're looking at an overall decrease. I would say if there is any silver lining, it is relative to our building aid and our timing on that. There's really still a number of moving parts. We've talked about, we just got that tuition bill today. We haven't done our final service request for next year through BOCES, and the negotiations that's going to take place at the Senate and the Assembly level. And the numbers will change based on that current data. You know, we always take that first run of the governor's proposal, which all of those reimbursable aids are based on numbers that were in November. not things that are in February or March or April, and more updated numbers. And our building aid is a perfect example of that. If we went by November's numbers, we're getting $15,000 in building aid. If we go by what we know to be true at this moment in time, that increases by $400,000. So that's not a bad problem to have. Now, the next slide, we're going to talk about tax cap. Many times at this point in the year, we do not have all the factors we need to determine the tax cap. Well, the good news is we have what we need to calculate our tax cap this year. The bad news is it's a perfect storm, and this is the lowest tax cap I have seen in my time with Manans. So you've seen this multi-step formula with the figures going in here. And if you really want to look at the bottom line, our allowable tax cap this year is 0.31%, or an increase of $22,497. So not great information, but at least we have the information. I do want to take, Court, did you have a question?
Sorry, it's just, is this what it is? I was surprised when I saw this slide and thought I was reading it wrong. Is this definitely what our tax cap is going to be, or is it still possibly shifting?
Nope, this is it.
0.3, that's all we.
This is it. So I guess we don't have to have the conversation this year about are we going out to the cap. I think we're probably good there. But I also want to take this opportunity to mention something that came up during our regular meeting, and I know we're going to be having more conversations around, and that is the concept of pilots. And it's a conversation, a much larger conversation for another day, but just to give you some perspective. When we were going through this calculation, I said to Kathy, take this same tax cap calculation that you see here on the slide, and let's just assume, and this number is not based on anything other than a figment of my imagination. I said, let's say we had a $75,000 pilot. What would that do to our tax cap calculation? And if you were to put that deduction into this formula where it needs to find, a $75,000 pilot would make us a negative tax cap or a reduction of $52,000. Just for perspective there, because there is a lot of conversation about the value to pilots, but this is my biggest hang up with pilots right here, is the negative implications on tax caps and then the compounding effect that has. You've seen the compounding effect, and we've kind of retooled our thinking, and we now recognize the value of going out to the cap when and where we can. But we now are also living in the consequences of perhaps not having done that over the last couple of years. So again, a conversation for another day, and I'll get off my soapbox, but it is a big deal for us. So all that said, you know, there's a lot of wait and see. There's a lot of things that are going to change, but we need to move forward with developing our budget based on what our kids need. That is what we are committed to doing. And despite the challenges we've had over my 8 years, we've always been able to get there. I will remain confident that we can do that. I'm not going to say it's not going to be easy, but in order to have a starting point for that conversation, we have to bring you a first draft budget. So what you have here is our first draft budget. And it shows with our with the gap, but then with our historic adjustments we've used with assigned fund balance and the transfer from reserves, draft one takes us to a $64,000 gap. I don't want you to panic. I don't want you to be excited about that, but I don't want you to panic either. We've sat at this time of the year and looked at bigger deficits. We've had bigger concerns in the past. I want to tell you what's included in this draft one budget. All existing programs and staffing. You know, if we look back to that first slide and what we are basing our decisions on, I'm not willing to give up anything we have right now, and those things that we've worked so hard to add, and some of the supports for our kids that we've all talked about over the last 11 months, they are going to need even more so moving forward. Everything we currently do sits in this budget. It accounts for anticipated COVID materials and supplies moving forward. It includes professional development dollars to support the goals that you created earlier this year. And it includes the continuation of the tech services that we had increased this year and hadn't necessarily budgeted for, and being able to carry them forward. Are there tables and chairs and gym floors in there? There are not. But there are all the things we are currently doing for our kids. And I feel strongly, as I think you do, that we need moving forward. So like any year at this time, there's still many unknowns. On the expenditure side, we've always had this, probably a little bit different this year on the revenue side for a number of the things that we've talked about. On the expenditure side, we need to tighten up those tuition figures. We're now more positioned to do that than we have been up to this point. The BOCES FSR, or final service request, will give us some more detailed information. Now that'll be compounded about a decision to consolidate those aids, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Enrollment, we are starting the process now of kindergarten registration to know what we have coming up as well. And we know now what we have leaving us. And we have our special education placements and the associated transportation, which you know from prior years is done through the annual review process, which is just getting underway now. And again, this list is really no different than the list we look at every year. On the revenue side, though, those first two bullets coupled together, state aid and federal aid, what comes out of that and what comes out of the parameters tied to the federal stimulus monies and how they are deployed, and if they are coming directly to schools or if they're going through the state. And then if it is going to supplant instead of supplement state aid, that could make a big difference in how much funding we get and how we get it. The STAR exemption is a big factor. We've talked about that at length this evening. And then the idea of those consolidated aid services. So these are things we still don't know. So what can we do, and what have our efforts been to date? And I think the bottom line is we have to continue to be abreast of changes, but to advocate. We've done that already, and we need to continue doing that. So I did have the opportunity to participate via Zoom in what's called the Senate and the Assembly joint hearings. It started at about 9 o'clock in the morning, and I think it ended at about 10:30 at night. I had it running in the background all day long, and that is an opportunity for elected officials, and not just our local elected officials, but across the state, to hear the concerns of a number of constituent groups, ranging from different organizations representing multiple types of school districts, from rural schools to the Big Five. It also includes charter folks to weigh in, teachers associations to weigh in. Anybody with a vested interest in education has the opportunity over the course of the day to share their concerns with the folks who will ultimately be negotiating on behalf of students and education in the budget. And the good news out of that is a lot was said. A lot of it were the same things. The same concerns we have and we have raised here tonight are not unique to Manans. Certainly we have our own unique concerns, and we have and will continue to advocate directly with our local officials on those. But the idea perhaps of the consolidated aid, everybody spoke to say that's something that needs to go away. The concerns about the tax cap, everybody spoke to that. So they are on the forefront, and they are on the minds across the state of those advocating for children. So I feel good about that. A number of you had the opportunity to meet with me virtually with the representative from Senator Breslin's office to speak about our unique concerns around Manans and the support they have been provided, and they have provided us in the past, and advocate for them to do the same moving forward. And then we did have a direct meeting with Assemblyman Steck virtually to share a lot of those same concerns. Kathy and I know some of you as well, have been participating in a number of webinars that are available, really helping us to unpack that information from the Association of School Business Officials, the New York State Council of School Superintendents, State Aid Planning. I mentioned Kathy's participating in another one tomorrow with State Aid Planning, and then the Capital Conference that NISPA put on last week also went through their presentation. And again, the areas of concern are not unique. They are felt across the board. We will continue to take every opportunity to advocate, to learn more, and to do what we can to make our concerns known. So what to expect moving forward and at the next meeting, as I shared earlier, the parameters will be updated as we go with every piece of new information that we have. Any additional information out of the Capitol or the governor's office that come from those negotiations. And then we will plan to bring to you a 2021-22 draft 2 budget the next time we meet. I can say with confidence, I don't want to bring anything to the table that has any less in it than what I brought you tonight. So with that said, I would open it up to questions and discussions from the board. So Kathy and I could decide what we need to do between now and the next meeting.
Can I just ask, just because it hasn't been an issue in recent years, remind me what would happen if we decided we wanted to go out over our cap? Would we need I know we need a super majority, right? Is it 60%? What is it?
It's a straight super majority of 60% of the people who voted. So
Okay.
Actually, yes, is it 50 plus 1? 50% plus.
On the pass.
Yeah, so not 60, 50 plus 1.
No, that's to
Not-
just pass.
Not to go over the majority. If we go above the tax cap, it's 60%.
60%.
Yeah.
We have done that once before in my tenure. It was my first year. And I will say, that was 8 years ago. We made a gentleman's promise to our community at that point in time that we would do everything in our power to keep from doing that again moving forward. Our tax cap wasn't 0.31 at that time. If I recall, it was 2.67, and I am going off the top of my head, and we went out over 3, but less than 4.
Yep. That is correct.
Other questions or comments?
I was just going to say, it's where we usually are, the wait and see. We've got a little bit more information, but, everything hasn't settled yet for, like you said, for panic mode or anything. We really do have to see where everything else comes in so that we can start moving from there. But it's more than we had last time.
I don't have any questions at this time.
Yeah, I don't have anything either, but just we've seen much bigger gaps before and ended up okay. So fingers crossed this will be the same.
Bill, anything?
Yeah, I got a whole bunch of stuff, right? But if I had to ask for something, it would be through you or the rest of the administration or the teachers in the school, because you're the ones that are there. So if we need something, is it going to be more support staff? Is it going to be more in the mental health area? Is it going to be more, or do we need to figure adding staff?
So I would say, in the large part of the thanks goes to you as a board for your foresight. This is really the first time, I think, in my history, I haven't come with a big ask. A person or a part of a person or a program or a 10,000 square foot addition. I think as a board and as a group, you have been incredibly thoughtful and had an incredible foresight into what our kids need now and what they might need moving forward. I think we've really done a good job of slowly building the structure to support our kids, regardless of the earthquake. So the pieces and the parts are there. We may certainly need to deploy things a little bit differently and look at things a little bit differently, but I think we have what we need. The only caveat I'll put out there, Bill, is short of a significant increase in enrollment. But right now, we have the bodies and the programs in place to do those things that were back on that initial slide. You know, what do our kids need? And we talk about the social emotional, and what do we want for them programmatically? We have those things there because we have been thoughtful, we have been planful, we have built slowly. We've had some, I'll call it luck for lack of a better word along the way. Some things happen, but again, I think because of the work we've done, we have had some breakage due to retirement that we have captured and capitalized on. We talked about the influx and the timing, which was purposeful on the building aid. So I think all of those pieces and parts that we could put in place in anticipation of the perfect storm, which I think is what we are in now, we have there.
Yes. So more specifically, and I'll give a quick shout out to Mr. Herman because you used the term earthquake, and I've been doing middle school science review because they have a huge test tomorrow. So earthquakes and volcanoes go hoo-ah. On that though, needs, COVID needs, right? It's not necessarily supplies, and I really hope we have enough and there's that's covered. It's the kids' emotional needs from COVID, right? We're maybe seeing it now. I'm pretty sure I have one or two that have issues, but going forward, this is a scar for a child. I want to make sure we're planning and have the equipment in place and the personnel in place to hit as schools have become the social wellness center, right, for kids' needs. If that's a planning point or if that's an ask, then let's make sure we get that covered.
And to your point, Bill, it certainly is a trauma. It's a trauma that's been experienced by kids and adults alike. I'm going to say I'm confident in the staffing that we've added. I think a piece of it is also learning what that means for kids and how to address that in the classrooms. I'm going to go back to our teachers have been rock stars. They've been figuring out as they go along, but are we going to have to look at some things differently and approach kids differently moving forward? Absolutely, we are. And I think we have a solid, incredibly professional and dedicated staff who can do that. I think the one piece we may all need to help get us there is the professional development that goes along with that. And as I indicated earlier, we did put dollars into this budget to support professional development across those 4 goals that the board developed. One of those being social emotional learning. And
So it
that's
all
the
sounds
one,
perfect.
we had to give that one up last year.
Yeah,
I don't think we can give it up this year.
I'm with you. So things are looking okay. If there's nothing else to ask for, let's do the gym floor and put a sign out front that's digital so people know what's going on.
Is that where they've just said it the whole time, Bill?
Kathy, can we do a separate referendum for the sign and the gym floor, like if we were buying a bus, if we had our own transportation? Oh. Anything else from anybody? We typically do not take public comment in the budget, but I'm just taking a look just to see if there's any questions out there. I do not see any at this point. You know, and I think we have all learned in our time here. I was saying to Kathy today, as challenging as these budget conversations are, we have to remember we didn't create these circumstances. We were handed these circumstances. And I think, you know, as a group, you've done a tremendous job of being forward thinking, of advocating on behalf of our kids. You continue to do that. And for the last 8 years, we've gotten through it. We will get through it again. We will get there. And Bill, as I'm fond of saying, we will be better because of it on the other side of all this.
Right.
That may be my new catchphrase. It may no longer be from what we know to be true at this moment in time. All right. With that, if there is nothing else, I will say good night and thank you to everybody for being here tonight.
And thank you to Kathy for reporting.
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Love. Good night, everybody.
All right, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.